So I just finished checking out a place that fellow YouTuber Bitwit checked out when he came to Japan and he was looking for PC parts. Now there's a reason actually that I usually never come to this place. It's called Yodobashi and it's actually really big. It's a 7-story building that has actually so many different electronics in there, from cameras to TVs to aircon units and things like that. But the problem is, if you're looking for PC parts here, I find a lot of the times the prices are just absurd. For instance, as soon as we walked in, I checked out the price of a 7950X, a Ryzen 9, and last month we picked this up well under MSRP, but here the price is, I think, roughly 80% higher than what I paid. And the store that we picked this CPU up from is only literally a 5-minute walk away, but also some of the other prices here are just insane. I saw a motherboard going for over Jumayen for X670, and then there was even a B650 from ASRock. And as much as I like ASRock boards, I wouldn't even entertain paying anywhere near this price for a B650 motherboard. However, I did find that the CPU coolers, especially some of the entry-level air coolers, were fairly priced here, and some of the cases were actually looking like they were decent value. But overall, I would just give this store a complete miss if you're looking for good value and bargains on PC hardware. But speaking of bargains, it is that time of the month to go find the best prices on used PC parts. So let's go find those deals.
If you want to get Windows 10 Pro activated for as little as $15 or Windows 11 Pro for as little as $21, then today's video sponsor SCD Keys has you covered. Use that coupon code BFTYC for a big 30% discount and the link in the description below.
So the first store that we have picked up some bargains is a place that I usually always come to when I first come into Tokyo for PC parts hunting, and that is the Tsukumo used store. Now, if you have, and this is one thing that I always recommend if you guys are hunting for used PC parts, always have a broad sort of horizon of parts to choose from, in that you're not so fixated on just, say, getting an RTX 3070 or just an RX 6800 XT, because if you have that open kind of broad range of parts to choose from, usually at this place you'll always score a deal. And in this case, we got an RTX 2080 Ti for under 300 USD, and it was in really good condition. And from this place as well, you also get a warranty. Now, on top of that, I was looking through all the cards and all the CPUs, and the RTX 3060, for instance, has gone up in price since last month when I was buying up some RTX 3060s for about 20 to 25% cheaper. But also we did manage to find a GTX 1070 8 gig for well under 100 USD. So these prices for graphics cards are getting ridiculously cheap, but you may also notice one thing and one trend with these two GPUs that I've snapped up, and that is, especially for the money I'm paying, they've got a lot of VRAM. So that is definitely one thing that is on my priority list for GPUs, and that is high VRAM count. Anyhow, let's move on now to the next place. So we've just come out of the first of many junk paradises here in Tokyo. Now, junk paradise, usually I find it's hit or miss, because sometimes they'll have really good deals on various PC parts, then other times they just miss the mark. For instance, as soon as I walked in here, I was looking at RTX 3060s and GPUs, and there was just really nothing that caught my eye here. In fact, they've still got the same, I think, 3080 water-cooled on the shelves that they did last month. So if the prices are too high, the parts are just going to sit there, and especially with the yen being so cheap and there's a lot of foreigners shopping through Akihabara, I'm actually surprised that that's still on the shelves. However, looking at the CPU prices, and then one of my favorite picks right now, a used 3060, the price of the 3060 is nearly the same price as a 3060 Ti. So that's an obvious miss, and it's actually significantly higher price than what I paid for it last month. However, there was a B550 motherboard, an ASRock Pro 4, that was sitting a little bit under 50 USD, and since that's well under half price of new for this motherboard, I decided to snap it up. Now, I'm always in need of B550 motherboards, so this was the one deal that I snapped up at this place. Speaking of motherboards, there was actually a place last month that I checked out that I'm really keen to go back to, so let's go see what they've got in terms of used motherboards. So this store behind me is the Iyama store, and last month we went in here for our first time because it's a newly opened store, and they had this bargain bin with all untested motherboards. And I decided to try one last month, and we got it back to the studio and it works perfectly, and that deserves a second turn for sure. But this time coming in, I noticed the bins had been picked of all the really good motherboards, except for one, which was a Z87 that didn't have a price tag on it. When I took it to the counter, they said that they'd price it up at Senrok Byakuen. So I think that's like close to maybe $11 or something like that. So it's really cheap for a Z87. I mean, providing I'm taking a gamble, it's untested, but the board looks okay. I've just got to bend, say for instance, there's a fan header that's got two pins shorting on each other. Just got to bend that back and hopefully it works okay. But also inside this store, they do sell other things like used monitors, used graphics cards, and the prices of the used GPUs. For instance, the 2080 Ti that I just bought from SCUMO was at this store for about 25% more. So running forward, I'm pretty happy with that 2080 Ti deal. But of course, we've already scored 4 really good deals. Let's keep this roll going. So we just now got out of DOS Para, and I'm actually shocked because I was looking through all the parts there, the PCs, the GPUs, and also the motherboards and CPUs and things like that, and nothing was really catching my eye in terms of really good deals, except down the bottom shelf, they had this RTX 3070, and it was going for, I mean, adjusted in USD terms, $210. I'm just sitting there. I had to check the prices on my phone, and then I just looked at the price and I took it to the counter and I asked the lady who was serving me, I said, is this price okay? She's like, yeah. And I said, is there anything wrong with this GPU? Like, can I check it before I buy it? And she's just like, sure, here, check it out. Checked it out. There was no rust or anything like that because I thought it was going to be a rust job. Like the last time we checked out a GPU that was extremely cheap at DOS Para last year. And this time around, the GPU was it was pretty good, like really good condition. And she said, like, if there's anything wrong with it, we've tested it, but if there's anything wrong with it, you got a 1-week warranty on it. So bring it back, get your money back. So I'm like, yep, I'm gonna buy that. So I thought the 2080 Ti deal was pretty good, but this one definitely trumps all the GPU deals I've got this month so far. However, let's keep on hunting, see if we can strike it really lucky like we just did here. So we've now just finished checking out all the rest of the junk paradises here in Akihabara, Tokyo, and there's actually 5 of these in total, where one of them really isn't of any interest if you're into PC parts because it's such a small store that they're only selling some smartphones and I think some iPads and things like that. but the other 3 do have PC parts. Now, one of the stores had a RX 7900 XT, and if you're able to get your tourist passport here, you're then able to get the tax off. So unfortunately this month I don't have access to a tourist passport, so I can't get the money off, which does make a big difference on these big ticket items like an RX 7900 XT. But if you had that passport, for instance, you could get this around 600 USD for a TYC RX 7900 XT, which I thought was actually a really good deal. Then this last one behind me here, they had an RTX 4090 going for about 1,280 US dollars. But then the best of them all, I thought, was the RTX 4070 Ti, which is going for a shade over 600 USD, which is also a model that'll fit in mini ITX rigs. So it's actually a very desirable 4070 Ti. So if you're in Tokyo and you've got your tourist passport and you're looking for a GPU upgrade on the higher end of things, then you can get a really good deal. And the really good thing here is that you also get that guarantee. I think it's 1 month from Junk Paradise. But in terms of the other deals going on here, I just couldn't find anything really special if we're looking through all the rest of the GPUs, especially keeping my eye out for those RTX 3060s. They've all gone up in price by at least $30 to $40 since last month. And also RTX 3070s and other cards, I just couldn't find the deals that we ended up picking up before. And also for CPU and motherboard deals, there was nothing special at these places. In fact, I was really surprised to see the i7 4770Ks and i7 4790Ks and things like that. They've gone up substantially in price since when I was picking them up a couple of months ago. So that's really surprising to see. And so I'm a little bit confused about why those CPUs would be going up in price, especially things like the newer CPUs on 12th, 13th gen and Ryzen 7000 are actually coming down in price. And lastly, although we didn't pick up any deals from these Junk Paradises, I thought I'd give you guys an update, especially when I see good deals that I would otherwise in different circumstances pick up, but I miss out on. So if you are in those circumstances, you can definitely go snatch up some of these deals. Though with that aside, let's go hit up some of the other stores. So we just got back from Tokyo now, and I actually, instead of recording the last bit of the stores that we checked out, I decided to just bounce on out of there, because if you get out of there before 6 o'clock, then it's a lot easier. There's no rubbing shoulders with people and just missing trains because you couldn't even get into the train. So basically we avoided peak hour, and we ended up checking out another 4 stores before we got out of Tokyo. And one of the stores had a deal here for what I believe is a brand new power supply. They didn't say whether it was or not, and they actually just said there's no return on it, but it looked like it was in really good condition. And the thing is, it's an enhanced power supply, 600 watt, looks like the 12 volt rail is really strong. And the thing is, I've used one of these power supplies before in the past, and I've had good success with them. So when I saw this for a little over $13, I was like, well, I'm gonna try one out. If they're really good, I'll just go clean out the rest of them on the shelves. So that was really surprising to see a power supply like with these specs at this price. So had to pick that up, but that was at a store where they just sell a lot of pre-builts, and I cannot lug a pre-built around on a train, so that just wasn't happening today. One time in the future, I do want to check this place's pre-builts out, because they do look like they've got a lot of deals, especially if you're like gutting things, or even if you're just looking for a cheap PC to just chuck in a low-powered graphics card and have a really budget gaming system. This place would probably be a really good pickup and place to check out. Though the other 3 stores we ended up checking out, 2 soft maps, they were both boss. In fact, the last month we got that 7950X for an absolute bargain. They must have mispriced that thing because they jacked the price up all the way to Jumayan this month. So, but all the other parts at the soft maps, whether it was new or used, were just really expensive. It was almost like some of the parts were double what the other places were selling for. And then if we look at some of the worst examples, an RX 6800 was over $1,000 US. Like, who's gonna pay $1,000 USD for an RX 6800? Not even an XT. So I just left that place scratching my head going, how are these prices this expensive, especially for last generation stuff? Anyhow, the final store on the list was Buy More. And sometimes they got some really good deals on new parts, and sometimes they got decent looking deals on used parts. Unfortunately, this month they had neither that was worth picking up. So those places ended up being a bit of a bust this month. And then of course we actually checked out a hard off as well. There's a hard off in Akihabara, and sometimes, very rarely do they have good deals on the shelves, but it's always worth a check. This time around, however, they had a HD 7970 for the price that we got a GTX 1070 for. So if you're looking for a good deal on a GPU, I would avoid hard off, at least this month until the prices come down. Anyhow, before we move over to the tally, trends that I'm seeing, and also a bit of tech yes-onomics, we're going to test out some of these PC parts, just make sure they all work fine, especially on the GPUs, make sure we got the headroom. Check out the Z87 to make sure we didn't get hosed. So the 2080 Ti is the last of the GPUs we have tested here, and all these GPUs are fine diddly-dine, except the GTX 1070, which has a little bit of a problem, but we'll talk about that after we test these two motherboards and this power supply out. And we just finished testing out those two motherboards. They worked first boot, no problems at all. And we even got the i3 included with that Z87 board. But a 4th gen i3 is pretty much worth very little nowadays. However, the power supply also shocked me, because this is the first time I've tried a power supply on a power supply tester. And the 12 volt rail, the 3.3 volt and the 5 volt all came back perfectly flat, meaning they were at those stated values, which usually they're like 0.1 or even sometimes 0.2 above their values, at least on one of the rails. All three of the rails were just perfectly flat. So if you guys are in Tokyo and you're looking for a bargain power supply, these enhanced power supplies, next time I'm there, I'm going to be picking up the rest of them. So if you want to get a bargain on a power supply, I'd be definitely getting one of these. It's also 80 plus bronze too. And the best thing is it's switchable too. So 100 to 240 volts. So these will work in Australia as well. So really happy with that power supply purchase too, considering they look like they've got to be brand new. Anyhow, the GTX 1070, the graphics cards, the other two were perfectly fine. The 3070 and the 2080 Ti, they had great headroom on the core clocks as well as the memory clocks. And the 1070, however, had good headroom on the core clocks, but the memory, when we started raising that above, say, 200 megahertz, I just noticed this weird sort of bumping behavior in the FPS. And then when we dropped it back down to flat or even 100 megahertz, it was working fine. And so what that means, in my opinion, is this was used by a crypto miner, and it's not a bad thing because the card still works. It's just that that's something to be aware of, especially if you're buying a card from a crypto miner and you want that card to work quite well. So this one doesn't have a whole lot of room on the memory, but keep in mind, GTX 10 series, they don't go as high on the memory sliders as, say, the 20 series or the 30 series, and now even the 40 series. So that's one thing that was a little bit concerning, but it's nothing that is going to make the 1070 a bad deal. In fact, that is the cheapest GTX 1070 I've ever got here at Tech Yes City. So as well as this RTX 3070, I just am mind blown with the price of how cheap that GPU was. Now, the RTX 3070, the temperatures were pretty hot, so that's not a problem, but I do believe it's a mandatory undervolt on that card, just because the cooler really doesn't feel like it's that good for an RTX 3070. But if you undervolt, you're gonna drop the power consumption a lot, and that's gonna take the strain off that mediocre cooler. So, all up, let's put the tally up on the screen for you guys here today. 6 different parts, absolute bargains. and I'm really satisfied with what we got this month, considering we just came in there and we're looking for the cream of the crop. And so I do believe I extracted all the best deals. However, there is also some really good deals in Tokyo, especially if you've got that tourist visa. You can go get some of the high-end stuff for really good prices, as well as some of these power supplies and things like that. That's still there in Tokyo. Honestly, I wish I had a power supply tester on the fly in a car this month, because I would have just literally just picked up the rest of these power supplies, because that's, in my opinion, an absolute bargain. But we got some really good bargains here. Do let us know in the comments section below, what was your favorite deal of the month? Also let us know what kind of deals are you picking up personally. I noticed this month there was a lot of RTX 2000 series cards coming up for sale, especially 2070s. And so I think if you don't care about deals hunting and you're not really too keen to look at the right time or snipe the right deal, I think the 2070 is a great go-to card right now, either 2070 or 2070 Super, because I just saw decent prices on them across the board, and that card is definitely going to be no slouch at either 1080p or 1440p. So that would be my favorite pick this month for an overall recommendation for a good used buy. However, that said, there's some really good deals out there on 3000 series, as well as some RX even 7000 series cards. I didn't see too many good deals on RX 6600s and things like that, because the new prices are very close to the used prices. Though of course, another thing with AMD is the 7800 XT is releasing really soon. So I think if you're looking for that 16GB solution that's going to give out a lot of high power, I would wait to see what that brings to the table too. Now also, the final thing to talk about, of course, is the economics. You guys love it when we go into tech yes-onomics. And so I'm gonna try and keep it very simple this month. Basically what we're seeing with interest rates is interest rates worldwide from central banks, especially in the US, Australia, UK, etc. They're sort of starting to plateau off. And what this means is that the central banks are realizing that they cannot raise interest rates any higher, because they will then start to crash the economy very hard, very fast. In that scenario, cash would be king, because you'd be able to buy things on pennies on the dollar, because a lot of people would be going bankrupt, they'd have to sell their assets. But even then, they realize that the plateauing means that there's a lot of pain already in the economy. And so what this means is it's a better time than ever, believe it or not, to not just buy PC parts, but be on the lookout for bargains, whatever it is. If it's sound equipment, if it's TVs or anything like that, cameras, there's going to be bargains popping up left, right, and center, especially on the used market, which is one thing that I was predicting a few months back. I'm starting to see it now. Some of these used bargains are just unbelievably good, but also when we look at the new parts, in that first place that we went to, that left my jaw dropped on how expensive things were. I think there was like a water cooler that was going for the price that I could put together a whole PC for. There was a motherboard that was going for pretty much the price that I could probably put together a high-end PC for. So I'm really kind of shocked at how expensive some of these new parts can be, especially when you look at it in just raw Japanese yen terms and what it's going for on the shelves. But that aside, look at the interest rates, they're plateauing off. If you've been saving your pennies, keep a keen eye for the bargains. And if you don't know if it's a good bargain or not, you can always just drop a comment down the comment section below. Either myself or a lot of the Tech Yes citizens here, they'll get back to you and give you great advice. That's what I've found in the community here. It's very good, I love it. You guys love the deals, I love the deals, as always. And if you've enjoyed today's parts hunt, then do hit that like button. And also, if you've got anything else you want to talk about, do let us know in the comment section below. And we've got the question of the day here, which comes from Stefan4923, and they ask, TSR better than DLSS? Nvidia must be angry with you. So in yesterday's video, I said that I thought in Fortnite that TSR, the upscaling that Epic uses in that game, looked better than DLSS too. And if Nvidia cared about that opinion, I would have serious concerns about Nvidia having control issues there. If they did have a problem with that, my advice would be just to make DLSS 2 look better than TSR in Fortnite. So that being said, DLSS 2 for a lot of people might look better than TSR in Fortnite. I don't know. I've just got my opinion, and I have tested at 4K, and I only really use upscalers when I'm looking at getting more FPS at 4K as opposed to 1440p and 1080p. But that said, DLSS 2, I really liked it in Cyberpunk especially. Cyberpunk 2077, I thought it did a great job in that game. Other titles, you like to just use pure raster a lot of the titles that I play. So anyhow, for what it's worth, I've got an opinion, and sometimes it doesn't fit the mainstream narrative, so I really don't care. That's what you get at Tech Gear City. You just get my unfiltered opinion regardless of whatever topic it is. So anyhow, hope that answers that question. If you guys have stayed this far and you're enjoying that Tech Yes content, be sure to hit that sub button and ring that bell to see the content the moment it drops here. And with that aside, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out for now. Bye.